The smoke curled to the summer air, sweet, thick, alive with laughter. Children chased each other across the freshly cut grass, red paper cups clutched tight, music humming low from a wireless speaker. The Johnson family was doing what families do best on a Saturday afternoon, grilling, laughing, belonging. But on the other side of the white picket fence, a curtain moved. Mrs. Henderson stood there, lips pressed thin, hand trembling around her phone. She didn't see family. She saw a disturbance. Didn't hear laughter. She heard noise. "They don't belong here," she whispered to herself. Then she dialed 911. "Hello? Yes, there's a large group of people at 245 Birchwood Lane. They're being loud. I don't feel safe." Her voice cracked with practice fear. What she didn't know was that one call would flip her entire world upside down, because the man tending the grill wasn't just another neighbor. He was about to become the mirror she'd been avoiding her whole life.
Before we continue, if you believe every story deserves to be told with empathy and justice, subscribe to Black Justice now. Tap the bell to stand for truth, one story at a time. We tell the stories others try to hide, the ones where truth stands taller than prejudice.
The squad car arrived 5 minutes later. The flashing lights scattered across the neat rows of houses like accusations. Kids froze mid-laugh. Plates hovered in midair. Marcus Johnson, the father, turned slowly from the grill. The heat shimmered behind him, turning the moment into a painting of disbelief. The officer stepped out, white mid-40s, buzz-cut, wary eyes. His name tag read Officer Daniels. Mrs. Henderson stood on her porch, arms crossed, pretending concern. "There, that's them," she said quickly, pointing. Marcus wiped his hands on a towel. "Afternoon, officer. Can I help you?" Daniels hesitated. Something in Marcus's tone wasn't offensive. It was calm, steady. Still, procedure was procedure. "We got a call about a disturbance. Large gathering, possible trespass." Marcus blinked. "A disturbance?" He gestured to the picnic table. "It's a family barbecue. My son just turned 9. Daniels looked around. Burgers, lemonade, balloons, kids giggling quietly now. He scratched his chin. "You live here?" Marcus's smile didn't falter. "Yes, sir. Bought this house 2 years ago. Mortgage, taxes, the whole American dream." Mrs. Henderson interjected. "Officer, I've lived here 23 years. This used to be a quiet neighborhood until they moved in." The crowd went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, I'll handle this." But Marcus's wife, Nia, stepped forward, her voice soft but sharp. "We keep our music below 65 decibels. HOA rules. We even invited everyone on this block to come by, except." Her eyes met Mrs. Henderson's. Some never RSVP'd. A ripple of quiet laughter broke the tension, but Marcus lifted a hand, steady, composed. "Nia, it's fine." He turned back to the officer. "Would you like a plate? Burgers are fresh." Daniels hesitated again. His posture softened slightly. Mrs. Henderson's jaw dropped. "You're not seriously." "Ma'am," Daniels cut her off, "it's not against the law to grill in your own yard." Her voice rose. "I know what I saw. They were drinking. Being loud. It's not right." Daniels frowned. "I don't see alcohol. I see families. Children." She huffed. "You don't understand. This isn't the kind of people we want here." Marcus exhaled slowly. He didn't raise his voice. He raised the truth. "Ma'am, with respect, we pay the same mortgage you do. Maybe even more. The only difference between our families is how much kindness we choose to show." For a moment, nobody spoke. The hiss of the grill was the only sound. Officer Daniels looked from one face to another, the neighbor's fury, the family's quiet dignity, and something inside him shifted. He holstered his radio. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "save me one of those burgers. I'm starving." The crowd gasped. Mrs. Henderson froze, red creeping up her neck. But Daniels wasn't smiling. He was serious, because behind that calm tone was a memory, a scar he'd been hiding since childhood. Marcus didn't flinch when Officer Daniels stepped closer. He didn't need to. He had already read the situation. How this man was watching, not accusing. Listening, not shouting. Daniels scanned the backyard again. No open liquor bottles. No loud music. Just cousins playing tag and uncles laughing quietly over dominoes. Marcus held out a plate. Daniels didn't take it. Yet, he glanced sideways at Mrs. Henderson, who stood on her porch like a statue carved from ice. "Ma'am," Daniels said calmly, "I need you to step inside. I'll follow up with you shortly." She narrowed her eyes. "You're choosing them over your own judgment?" Daniels didn't answer. He turned away. But Marcus noticed something in the officer's face. Tightened jaw, flicker of something deeper. Familiar. "You okay, officer?" Marcus asked quietly. Daniels nodded once. "You remind me of someone." He paused. "My father. He grilled like that, too." Marcus smiled. Was he good at it? Burn everything. Called it caramelized. That earned a quiet laugh. Then Daniels lowered his voice. "I'll be honest, Mr. Johnson. The call said there was a rowdy crowd of strangers disturbing the peace. I expected something else." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You expected criminals." Daniels looked down. "I expected trouble. Not family." There was a silence. Not tense, but thick with realization. Then Nia stepped forward, holding a pitcher of lemonade. "You look like you've had a long day." Daniels accepted the glass. His hand trembled slightly. "Thank you." The moment was small, but something shifted in the air. Mrs. Henderson watched it all from her window, her lip curling in disbelief. She picked up her phone again. "Code enforcement," she whispered. "I'll shut them down legally." But as her call connected, her eyes caught movement across the street. Another neighbor, Mrs. Goldberg, 81, white, frail, was wheeling herself down her driveway, straight toward the Johnsons' backyard. Daniels turned when he saw her. Marcus walked over instinctively. "Miss Goldberg, you okay?" She smiled wide. "I'm just here for my plate. I smelled those ribs all the way down at my house." Daniels blinked. "You know them?" She laughed. "These folks mow my lawn every other Saturday and bring me soup when my knees ache." "Know them?" "I love them." Daniels glanced back toward Mrs. Henderson's house. That changed things, because it wasn't just a polite neighbor endorsement. It was a contradiction in truth. Meanwhile, in the backyard, young Elijah Johnson, just 9, noticed the cop still hadn't smiled. He approached slowly, holding a paper plate. "My dad made the ribs. He used a dry rub this time." Daniels crouched down. "What's a dry rub?" Elijah looked serious. "Means no sauce. He says real flavor don't hide under sugar." Daniels chuckled. "I'll remember that." Elijah stared at him, curious. "Are you here to arrest somebody?" Daniels hesitated. "No, buddy, I'm just here to make sure everyone's safe." Elijah nodded. "We're safe. But my dad says some people see danger where they want to see it." Daniels didn't respond, but he didn't forget it either. Back on her porch, Mrs. Henderson paced like a storm cloud. She had printed screenshots of HOA bylaws, circling vague phrases about quiet enjoyment of property. She wasn't done yet. "I'm contacting the HOA directly," she said into her phone. "They'll deal with this. Trust me." But behind her, a car pulled into her driveway. Her husband stepped out, gray suit, loosened tie, briefcase in hand. "Honey," he said, confused. "What's going on?" She pointed. Again. I had to call the cops." He followed her finger and then paled. "That's Marcus," he whispered. "From work." She blinked. "What?" "Marcus Johnson. He's in compliance. We just promoted him last quarter." Her mouth opened, closed. "You mean he?" "He helped save the firm $3 million in liability fines. He's brilliant." Mrs. Henderson staggered back a step. The world shrank. She looked again at Marcus, now calmly serving lemonade to a police officer and offering ribs to her elderly neighbor. No shouting, no trespassing, just decency. Everything she thought she knew unraveled, and then Daniel's radio crackled. Dispatch to Unit 14. Be advised, caller has made repeated complaints from this address. Subject flagged for racial profiling concerns. Proceed with caution. Daniels froze. He slowly turned his body cam off, not to hide the footage, but because he didn't need it anymore. The real evidence was already unfolding before him. He walked up to Marcus again. You know, he said, most people in my shoes would have written up a warning, just keep things clean. Marcus wiped his hands. But you're not most people. Daniels nodded. No, I'm not. Not anymore. Then he did something unexpected. He removed his sunglasses, let them see his eyes, and he said quietly, I used to be the kind of kid who got followed in stores. I grew up in a mixed neighborhood. White mom, black dad. I know both worlds. Marcus paused. And now, Daniels looked around. Now I remember which one needs defending. He accepted the plate of ribs. The grill hissed in approval. Marcus noticed how the mood shifted, not in fear, but in clarity. Officer Daniels wasn't just tolerating their presence. He was staying. He leaned against the fence like a neighbor, not a cop. Inside her house, Mrs. Henderson watched with rising fury. She turned to her husband. You knew he lived here? He nodded slowly. He moved in 2 months ago. Said he wanted a quiet place to raise his daughter. I told him Oak Ridge was nice. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. You invited him here? I welcomed him. There's a difference. She glared. But her husband wasn't done. You remember when our water heater broke? Guess who noticed it leaking into the foundation? Marcus. He called me at 6 a.m. to warn us. She blinked. That was him. He nodded again. We could have lost a whole floor if he hadn't spoken up. Each word made the room smaller. Her certainty was no longer a shield. It was a mirror, and what she saw looking back wasn't pride. It was prejudice. Outside, Elijah was showing Officer Daniels his toy drone. It goes way up. Want me to show you? Daniels smiled. Let's keep it grounded for today. Marcus looked over. I hope you don't mind, he said, nodding at the growing crowd. Word spreads fast when there's food involved. A few more neighbors had wandered over, black, white, Hispanic, all drawn by the smell of barbecue and the hum of curiosity. Daniels didn't mind. He took another bite of rib and said, if this is how trouble looks, maybe we've been policing the wrong things. That's when a black SUV pulled up. 2 people stepped out. One wore a dark blue blazer with a badge on the lapel. Marcus's expression tightened. Nia whispered, that's city code enforcement. The man with the badge approached. Marcus Johnson? Yes, sir. We received a complaint about illegal grilling and noise disturbance. Marcus tilted his head. All within city ordinance. The grill is certified, volumes under the limit, and we're on private property. The inspector raised an eyebrow. You sure? Marcus pulled out a folder from the side table, neatly labeled, fully documented. I used to do compliance for county zoning. I know the codes by heart. The inspector flipped through the documents. Each page was airtight. Well, he said finally, I see no violations here. Daniels stepped in. That aligns with what I observed. This is a peaceful gathering. Behind them, Mrs. Henderson appeared on the sidewalk, arms crossed tight. That can't be it, she snapped. There must be something. The inspector turned to her. Ma'am, did you make the call? I did. I have the right. Yes, but false or racially motivated reports can be a violation of civil conduct. Are you alleging a specific violation or simply expressing discomfort? She went quiet. The silence was louder than shouting. Daniels added gently, You may want to think carefully, ma'am, because when you call us, we have to come, and that takes time from real emergencies. Mrs. Henderson flushed, but it wasn't shame that burned her cheeks. It was exposure. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and laughter rolled across the yard, Marcus pulled Daniels aside. You didn't have to stay this long. I know. You trying to earn your honorary uncle badge or something? Daniels grinned. Maybe. Then he sobered. But really I stayed because this reminded me of what my job should be. Marcus nodded. To protect? Daniels shook his head. To understand. They shook hands. As Daniels turned to leave, Elijah ran up with a rib wrapped in foil. For later, just in case you get hungry on patrol. Daniels took it. You're going to be a great man someday. Elijah beamed. Meanwhile, across the street, Mrs. Goldberg was finishing her plate with delight. Reminds me of Memphis in '73, she said to Nia. Your husband's got magic hands. Nia smiled. He'll love hearing that. And then her voice lowered. You know, it's funny. What is? This all started because someone tried to shut us out. And now, look around. The backyard was full. Not just family, but neighbors. New faces. Shared food. Shared stories. Even the mailman had stopped by. Sometimes, Nia said, what's meant for harm becomes a spark for connection. Mrs. Goldberg nodded slowly. That's called grace. But the real surprise came the next morning. Marcus was sipping coffee when a knock came at the door. He opened it and froze. Mrs. Henderson stood there, holding a white envelope. I came to return this, she said, handing it over. It was a letter, sealed, marked, to whom it may concern. Marcus opened it carefully. Inside was a typed note, notice a formal complaint, complete with her signature. She swallowed hard. I filed it before I knew who you were. Marcus didn't speak. I thought I was protecting the neighborhood. He raised an eyebrow. From what? She faltered. I don't know any more. He waited. I'm sorry. She said it so quietly the wind nearly carried it away. Marcus nodded once. Takes courage to show up. She looked down. I don't expect you to forgive me. He stepped back. But I already did. She looked up, stunned. You did? He smiled gently. Because if I held on to every time someone misjudged me, I'd never have room to build anything. She wiped her eye quickly and walked away. Marcus closed the door slowly. And that Sunday at church, the sermon was short. The pastor looked out over the crowd and said, we cannot control how people see us, but we can choose to keep our flame lit, even when the world tries to snuff it out. Because sometimes God uses a fire to feed others. And somewhere in the corner pew, Officer Daniel sat beside his father, silent but proud. The Monday after the barbecue, Marcus was back at work, organizing files at the nonprofit housing clinic he volunteered at. As he stepped out for coffee, he found a note tucked under his windshield wiper. It read, thanks for the ribs. More importantly, thanks for the reminder. D. It didn't have a badge number or full name, but it didn't need one. Marcus smiled, folded the note into his wallet, and drove off. Back home, Elijah was drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Next to him, Mrs. Goldberg was reading a book. And across the street, Mrs. Henderson stood at her fence, waving. Slowly, tentatively, Marcus waved back, not out of obligation, but out of choice. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over proof, and grace over grievance.
The world doesn't always change with force. Sometimes, it changes over fire and food. Respect costs nothing, but means everything. Share this story with someone who's ever been judged before being known. Subscribe to Black Justice for more cinematic stories where humanity, humility, and truth always rise. Because every voice deserves to be heard, especially when it's been silenced for too long.